When you attend a professional conference, you may not think about the details that happen behind the scenes. Jack Molisani definitely thinks about them. As the organizer of the LavaCon Content Strategy Conference, he seeks out interesting locations, scours the profession for the best speakers, and follows industry trends, aiming to create gatherings that are both enjoyable and enlightening. Jack has been virtualizing parts of his events for years, so he also has some great ideas about the current shift to online events.
Welcome to the Content Strategy Insights podcast, where accomplished content strategy experts share their wisdom with our friends in the content community. We talk with professionals who work across the span of content strategy, from small businesses to big enterprises, from content design to content marketing, from solo consultancies to huge agencies. Our mission is to democratize content strategy, to make its principles and practices accessible to everyone. And now, here's your host, Larry Swanson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 66 of the Content Strategy Insights podcast. I'm really happy today to have with us Jack Molisani. Jack he runs a staffing agency for content professionals and other technical professionals. He's written a book about how to manage a technical career, but I think he's probably best known as the founder and the organizer of the LavaCon conference. So, but let me welcome you to the show, Jack, and please tell the folks a little bit more about yourself and how LavaCon came to be in particular. That's what I'm interested in anyway.
Sure. This is a fun story. Harken back to 1998, the Society for Technical Communications annual leadership summit. Someone had observed that at the time, none of the chapters in the Pacific Rim countries ever got to go to their own regional conferences because they were always held in mainland US. And someone casually threw out the suggestion, have a combined Region 7, Region 8 conference, hold it smack dab in the middle in Hawaii. And I raised my hand, I'll run that one. And it was a one-time event. And at the end of it, we had it in the fall of 2000 as the SDC Pan Pacific Conference. Our break even, about 140 people, 560 showed up. Everyone kept saying, I can't wait till the next one. I'm going, there is no next one. I can't wait till next year. I'm going, maybe there's an opportunity here. So I got together some seed money in 2002, started my own conference on content strategy, management. There were plenty of conferences out there, the STC conference, Win Writers, but never sessions for those with a little gray in our temples. So we started at strategy and planning, and that's how the conference started. And that worked great until 2008 when the economy crashed, and I couldn't get people to Hawaii if my life depended on it. So that's when I started bringing the conference to the mainland US cities, but fun, walkable cities with great food like New Orleans and Portland and Austin, live music. And that's worked out pretty well so far. Yeah.
Nice. So you've really, I've only been to the one LavaCon in Portland last fall, and I can attest to the fun of it and the choice of venue. I thought it was a lot of people would end up in the Bay Area or the bigger New York or the bigger venues. I love that you've chosen that. You're obviously been very thoughtful about putting that together. I'm curious, how it evolved, that initial decision to go to the smaller places and the walkable cities. That's just one. The venue selection is one of many factors. What else was going on in there?
All right. So there's three facets to that question. How we got to New Orleans was I went to school in New Orleans, and I have some family there, and the city is near to my heart. So after Katrina, I brought my conference to New Orleans as soon as I could to help the city recover our convention dollars. But then we found out it was so fun and the food was so amazing, and kept saying, when are we going back? So we've been going back almost every other year. So I've been operating the conference between New Orleans and Portland, New Orleans and other venues. The second part of your question was why these smaller venues? When my conference was in Hawaii, we were known for our aloha spirit, the local regional foods, the local culture. And that became almost part of my branding. And I wanted to preserve that because that was part one, my branding, two, fun, and three, nobody else doing that. So it kind of differentiated from other conferences. I wanted to go where fun, walkable places. I didn't want to be in a airport Hilton somewhere. I wanted to be in the gas lamp district of San Diego. Walking distance in Austin, listening to live music coming out of all the bars and restaurants. The same thing in New Orleans. You can't throw a stick without hitting a bar or restaurant or live music. So all those locations had a culture that we wanted to be part of. Yeah.
Yeah, tapping. Well, the other, and so I think that probably affects like who shows up. But I think that another huge consideration in attending a conference is like who's speaking, and that's something I've been really impressed with the slate of speakers you've had at LavaCon over the years. I'm really curious how, I assume your curation of speakers and the folks you've recruited and the topics of interest to your attendees. I guess tell me or not everything, but tell me how your speaker roster comes together.
Sure. Again, several aspects of this. One is we publish our speaks and let people just propose. But then I also go out and I hand choose people, or hand invite them, I should say. And when choosing speakers from both those pools, I look at like 5 things. Is the person well known in our industry, right? Christina Halverson wrote the book on web content strategy. Last year we had Karen McGrain, who wrote the book on mobile content strategy. Naz Urbina and Sarah O'Keefe, who wrote books on content strategy. Everybody knows who these names are. Andrea Ames, everybody who knows Andrea loves Andrea. And Joe Gallner, fantastic speakers on the leading edge of the industry. I want the people at my conference, right? Second is the person at a well-known company that we would want with doing. For example, until this year, I didn't know who the head of content strategy at Salesforce is, but boy, I'd love to know what they're doing. I mean, Salesforce is huge and they're growing like gangbusters. So are they from a big company, or like we got the vice president reached out to me from NBC Universal, vice president of content strategy and marketing, saying, can we be one of your speakers? I went, yeah. So part of this is just us. This is going on to our 18th year now, and we're getting well known enough that people are coming to meet. People are reaching out to me on LinkedIn too. Last year, Michael O'Donnell, who is the vice president of global content marketing at Dun & Bradstreet, reached out to me and I said, you want to be a speaker? And he goes, sure. So it's just through networking and reaching out. I'll tell you, here's something I want to get as a speaker who I have not yet gotten, is I would love to have the head of content strategy from either Telemundo or what was the other Spanish-speaking language, Univision.
Oh, Univision, yeah.
Yeah, because one, and the head of content strategy Nickelodeon, because they are creating content for the next generation of content consumers. I want to know what's in their head. I'm sure they have tales to tell. Same thing, trying to get away from this English-centric view of the world. How do you create content in multiple languages? One year we almost got them, but he had to cancel because of budget cuts, was the head of content strategy at the United Nations. Because on their website, daily, they publish news in 8 languages in real time. I would love to know what tools they were using and who curates that. How long do they keep it up? And where's the content come from? And all that, I still want to get him back. But this is the kind of thing. And then finally, I look at where is the industry going, right? So when I heard that last year that Facebook was dropping something like $60 million into AR and VR research, I went, and I know somebody at Facebook, so I said, Jonathan, can you introduce me to the person in charge of the AR VR content strategy at Facebook? And he did, and she spoke at my conference. Oh my God, they're setting up virtual chat rooms where you put on your AR goggles and go interact with an avatar. Oh my God, that's a virtual conference right there. And you get to choose your avatar or your own face, or wow, I want to know what Facebook is doing with AR, VR. So being connected to those kind of people is another way that I find.
A quick follow-on to that, like as you put together the program for 2020, curious, what are the big trends you see coming? What's what are the things we'll all be talking about a year from now, because we learned about it at LavaCon?
Interesting. Last year, everybody was talking about chatbots, bots, and it was like a flash in the pan, and they're still there, but they weren't this new bells ring and the clouds part, and we have a new communication channel that we will concentrate on, yes. But Karen McGrain, and if you want to go to the LavaCon website, lavacon.org, there's a free video of her speaking on the homepage of talking about moving your content into structured authoring. Many large companies are, but her talk, oddly enough, called Content in the Zombie Apocalypse, which I think is very appropriate right now. It used to be that every time a new publishing paradigm came around, management ran around like, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Oh, we got to publish the PDF. No, it's okay. And then it was mobile, and then it was responsive, and now it's Google Glass, and who knows what. She goes, if you put your content, if you future-proof your content by putting in a structured authoring database, it doesn't matter what the next publishing paradigm is. You could be publishing on jumbotrons, or she said, when toaster printers come out. Your content is ready. It's about moving away from only doing structured content if you're translating. Because remember, in the olden days, the only way it was cost effective to move your content to structured authoring is the cost savings on localization. All right, but we're moving away, that the cost is coming down to the point where content reuse and getting authors away from formatting, because in structured authoring, you format when you publish it, right? So if the content is on a laptop, you can see three columns. If it's on a tablet, you'd see 2 columns. On a phone, you see 1 column. So it's formatted when you publish it, not when you author it. So they're seeing all sorts of cost savings on the front end by taking the formatting part out of the authoring process.
Well, I think that's, to me, that seems like one of the big contributions of the technical content world to the bigger discipline of content strategy. Is like, you all been doing that for 20, 30, 40 years. And I think a lot of that stuff, like just CCMSs and DITA and XML formats, and those are the kinds of underlying technologies that enable that kind of, nicely semantically structured content to underlie whatever it is you're up to. Which kind of reminds me, like, so you've said you've been doing LavaCon for 18 years.
18 years, yeah.
That must be the oldest content strategy conference out there, or is it? I mean, there's been design conferences and web development and that kind of stuff, but in terms of a conference, not and kind of like you said, it's a different from STC or the others. Are you unique in that regard? Do you think you kind of pioneered this?
Difficult to say, because when my conference started, it was a conference on technical communication management. We were doing content strategy 18 years ago, but we didn't call it content strategy. It was a few years later before that term became widely thing. But we had sessions on DITA over 10 years ago. We had structured authoring before that. We had SGML going back decades. Now, what was interesting is, at least my conference, and I think other conferences follow suit, where it wasn't enough just to do managing technical writing projects, because then we had social media. Okay, what is social media, right? And then we had mobile. Okay, what is mobile? So it was almost like a dual track where you had all the management stuff and the strategy stuff, plus the latest tools and technology, right? So it was while there were conferences out there on marketing, and there are conferences out there on project management, and there are conferences out there on writing, mine was kind of like a meta conference where we had, if you needed to go to one place, you could only go to one conference a year, and you needed to stay up on data on managing your team and managing the latest technology and what's coming down the road and what should I be budgeting for 10 years from now. That LavaCon kind of fit that. So I don't know if we're uniquely in there, because content strategy means different things to different people. For example, Confab is actually larger than LavaCon is, but they focus solely on web content strategy, where my conference focuses on multi-channel. So we do web and print and PDF and mobile and whatever. So there's several of us out there. It's just what meets your organization's needs. best.
Yeah, no, and I picture a lot of like amoebas kind of navigating this world and kind of merging and blobbing together. And because last year at Confab, I don't know if you went, but there was a lot of stuff about UX writing and product content strategy, and that seems to be not infiltrating, but kind of becoming an important part of that world. And one way to think about that is like a website is just another digital product in some sense.
Right.
So I think that might be where that part of where that came from. But there was a lot of explicit like product UX content. Is there as well. But yeah, and it's interesting. Let me ask you, I try to ask everybody this, how would you define, like if you're at a cocktail party with some neophyte who knows nothing about the field, how would you describe content strategy to them?
I describe it with an analogy. Take a company like Cisco Systems that has 200 products, each of which needs a sales brochure, installation guide, a web page, a tech support page. Multiply that by the 27 languages they translate worldwide, it would be absolutely impossible to keep all that content around in Microsoft files. So some clever person will take all that content and put it into a database and tag it so it can be spit out when they want it, where they want it, in the country they want it, on the device they want it. A person who does that is a content strategist. And my conference is content strategy digital publishing.
Nice. That's a great. That's and I think. But if you went to like a marketing conference, you get a whole other thing, and even at Confab, you get a different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said, the scope of what you just said, like that spans a huge amount. I've heard you talk in other podcasts and talks about the need for a CCO, like a central, somebody like a chief content officer, somebody ideally in the C-suite. But tell me about your, tell me where you perceive that need coming from, and have you seen success stories in that regard? Are there people doing that, or organizations doing that? I mean. Yeah.
I'm happy to announce there is now a LinkedIn group called Chief Content Officer. So yes, it is gaining traction. The reason why I advocate for Chief Content Officer, and I originally heard this from Alan. What's Alan's last name? What am I speaking?
Pringle, the guy at
not Pringle.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Porter, Alan Porter.
Okay.
Was that so often return on investment for content initiative doesn't come out of the department that's spending the money. For example, if the IT department is implementing this, it's the translation costs. So they go, well, why am I going to spend the money if I'm going to see a return? So you need somebody, a mentor, a champion above all the content silos that bring them all together like a United Nations of content, everybody around the table with the equal thing. And so you have IT and tech support and training and marketing and tech comm and, the content's chief customer success officer, all on the same page, being led by above with someone who's got the purse strings. And LavaCon has a YouTube channel, and Naz Urbina did a keynote on how storming the castle, how to reach those who have the power and purse strings. And you can find that talk on our
I'll
YouTube
link
channel.
to it in the show notes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All of our keynotes the past 5 years. And what's interesting about LavaCon is I don't have one keynote that's there and talks learnedly. I mean, so many people go, oh my God, everybody needs to hear this. Oh my God, everybody needs to hear this. And TED Talks, technology education design talks, are 18 minutes long, because it's long enough to be substantial, but short enough not to lose people's interest, or short enough that they can listen to it or on a walk or a jog. So all of my features are 18 minutes long, and I tend to have, instead of 1 hour, 18-minute talks. And they're all available from our YouTube channel.
Great, I love that. And that's probably, that's like 18 years ago when you started, you had more like 50-minute sessions with a Q&A and kind of, and then that sort of has evolved. I think there's so many things going on there, just the rise of social media and just information overload and decreasing attention spans. There's so many things in there. And it sounds like that's working for you.
We've grown on average 20% per year for the past 18 years. Yeah. Now, I will tell you, getting back to something you were asking about the future of in-person versus virtual conferences.
Right. I wanted to get back to that for sure. Yes. Thank you.
So we are currently April 15th, we recorded this, and everyone's at home. on lockdown, and hopefully this will lift soon. The conference is not till the end of October, which is 7.5 months from now. So I am hoping that things will calm down enough that people will show up in person, because we're going to be in New Orleans, which is also a hot spot, so it has to calm down. So one, we're going to be in Austin, Texas next year. So this morning I reached out to the convention center at Austin going, if we do our conference in New Orleans, do you have available those? Two, a lot of conferences are moving to virtual rather than just canceling them. They don't have time to, they're too soon. So I'm going to 2 conferences over the next 2 months. I'm speaking at one of these conferences. You know what? So much of the value at conferences is talking with industry. One of the taglines for my conference is find tribe. You know, come talk to people, find out what the head of industry at Facebook or Amazon or Salesforce is doing. How did you handle this? What worked? What didn't? Keith coined a term, hallway track. Just bumping in the hallway and making connections. I think we're going to lose that if we go to a pure virtual event.
Yeah, have you tried to, like, I was listening to I think, Jorge Aranga had Abby Covert on his podcast the other day, recently, and she talked about they did their information architecture conference, or one of those conferences, virtually, and they had like Zoom breakout rooms, you know, and Slack channels and things like that. Have you experimented with, I mean, there's a lot of technology things, but yeah, you're right. That's always my favorite track at any conference is the corridor track, the hallway track. That's where, I don't know, 80% of the good stuff is. But have you tried to mimic, or not mimic, but replicate or approximate that?
Well, I have to report that LavaCon has had a virtual track for over 5 years now, and it was led by Felice Banner in Adobe Connect. And there's a whole chat window where you can chat with other participants, and Felice would relay questions from the speaker audience back again. So we brought them fully into the conference experience. Joel Glickman would take a camera and go out into the exhibit hall, would go out into the breaks. We always have a karaoke night, storytelling night, other fun networking events, and we would Facebook Live those. So anybody who wanted to be part of the conference experience could be. Now, I can tell you just last night, the San Diego STC chapter had a live virtual social networking event on Zoom, broken out into sub chat rooms and sub chat channels on Slack. So yes, we are what do you call that? Not experimenting with, but prototyping these various virtual networking things.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really interesting. I'm sure we're all doing a lot of this now. I went to church with my family on Sunday morning, and I was really impressed with the Zoom production that they put on to run a church service. By the same token, I've seen other similar kinds of events that were kind of clunkily run. So I think there's probably a huge amount of learning going on right now. Do you have any sources you go to, or models that you kind of see as folks who are handling that kind of stuff really well, or?
I have to admit that I was fairly fortunate to have Felice Banner as my virtual track producer. She's not only got a degree in distance learning, she teaches distance learning, and she's just taken on the job at the STC for them, so I'm gonna have to replace her. But I've had excellent tutors over the past few years. Like I said, we are just now going into other events producing, so I'm actually gonna go as an attendee and as a speaker. One of my favorite sayings is the definition of an expert is someone who's made all the mistakes possible at a given field, assuming you don't keep repeating them. So, and learn from the mistakes of others is faster than making them all yourself. So both as an attendee and a speaker at these other events, I'm going to see what worked, what didn't, and that way I can replicate that in my event come October. So I'm really hoping that we're going to have an in-person event. And then those who don't feel comfortable can attend virtually. And we've always recorded, we live streamed one whole track with all the keynotes and all the breakouts in that one track, and then recorded the other ones. So after the conference, you can go back and watch the ones that you didn't see in person. So the whole conference is available virtually, either live or on Memorex.
You know, that's something that's occurred to me. Like, I'm not an epidemiologist or public health expert, but it seems to me that one likely outcome over the next year and a half is that we'll have this situation where there are people who've been exposed to the disease and have immunity to it, and so there'll be this kind of like a little bit bifurcated societies. We all try to come back together. That there might very well be the opportunity to have some people who are safe and comfortable assembling in person, and I kind of like that hybrid model, that which is kind of what you've done the last 5 years, right?
Right.
Yeah, cool.
And now, who knows? We have the vaccine by then. We could have immunity. You have to show your immunity card to get into the event. Kind of, who knows? Like I said, I've got a whole 7.5 months before my event. I'm just gonna sit back and wait and see. I'm happy to report that none of the we've offered buy one get one free pricing until we publish the program, and I opened normal registration the day before they declared lockdown. So everybody kind of in a wait and see right now, including me. So we're just gonna see what happens. Either way, the conference will go on, live or virtual, in person. Maybe there's 3 of us there to run things, and or we do it from home. It just depends on how the next 3 months goes.
Yeah, no, I'm all of a sudden thinking of like, I consume a lot of music online too. And there's been a lot of like really interesting like studios with the musicians all 6 feet apart from one another doing, you know, it's still, so I don't know, there's like, I will see. And you're going to be way ahead of me on that in terms of that. Hey, Jack, I noticed we're coming up close to time, and I always like to give my guests a chance. Is there anything that's come up during the conversation, or just anything last that's on your mind about running a conference or content strategy that you want to make sure we share with our folks?
Kind of a related thing is to keep in mind small businesses, because those are the ones that are most at risk of not surviving the next few months. Musicians in New Orleans, drag queens in New Orleans, who are doing their show from their living room with their Venmo ID. So tip them $5. You know, share the love, especially if you're one of the few that are currently employed. Take care of their friends who aren't, because like we'll get through this, but we're going to get through it together. So as far as content strategy goes, for those of you who don't know DITA, Scriptorium offers learningdita.com. Learning Dita Live. Either way, just Google search Learning Dita, and it's a free way to get your feet wet. Because even though you're not doing it now, you will probably in your future. So start now, especially if you have all this free time on your hands. You know, you could be sitting watching TV, or you could be learning Dita. So. No,
that's right. I think that's something that we all have ambitions of that during this time. Like, oh, good, I can finally do that. And Dita, because Dita is that sort of, I know in the technical content strategy world, that's sort of a, if not a default, a super common technology to implement structured content. What other, I guess I love that idea though, to learn Dita. Are there other skills or technologies that you think are really hot or interesting right now that people would benefit from learning?
Yes, and 2 things that I tell everybody that will make your career is take a public speaking class, like at Toastmasters, really kind of difficult right now, unless you do it virtually, or take an Inperson, which again, hard to do right now unless you do it virtually, because the whole part about Inperson in the moment, listening to what the other person has to say, not what you're thinking about, and then adding to it. So it's a great way to be part of the conversation. So many content strategists are introverts, and they just want to sit in their cube and work on taxonomies and other big words. Where you can have the best content strategy in the world, but if you can't sell it, if you can't get funding for it, it's not going to go anywhere. So you need to have those people skills in addition to the technology chops.
Yep.
That's my word of advice.
No, that makes sense, because you could have all the great ideas and knowledge in the world, but if you can't sell it, and not just like presenting at a conference, but just selling your colleagues and boss on the ideas, right?
Correct.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
And speak at conferences. I know at my conference, even though our slate is full for this year, we accept full-time brand new speakers. Everyone's got to start somewhere. We offer speaking coaching and slide design coaching, but it gets so much easier the more you do it. So volunteer to speak at your local organizations, attend a meetup once we get 6 feet apart. Again, a lot of this, I'm taking a longer term view of just not what to do over the next 4 weeks. Attend meetups. So many people are degrading. I'm going to use the term degrading into chatting only from a distance. I think we miss something when we rely solely on social media to communicate. And plus, take example, I'm a recruiter. I know people from various conferences. Like if I get a content strategy job in Milwaukee, I think Molly Barrett. If I need a marketing person in San Diego, I go Bonnie Graham. It's only because I have these face-to-face interactions that I know what they're good at, what they're not good at, and they're memorable, which I don't necessarily get if someone just emails me a resume.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a proponent for in-person, safely social networking once it's safe to do so again.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that as well. Well, thanks so much, Jack. It's been a really great conversation. I really enjoyed catching up with you. And I can think of there's 10 more conversations just unfolded in the last 5 minutes. I'd love to follow up with you on. So, well, thanks again.
One last thing, I am a professional recruiter. And if anybody wants me to review the resume, I'd be happy to do it for free. It's my giving back. In the notes, we'll put my email address, which is jack@prospringsstaffing.com. And we'll end on that.
Sweet. Thanks so much. Very generous of you, Jack. I'll definitely put that in the show notes. Well, thanks.
All right. Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you, Larry.
See ya.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. If you can think of a friend who might enjoy this episode, please share it with them. And please join us again for our next content strategy interview.